Hello, everyone. My name's Martin Bowes. I am the co-host of the On the Fly podcast, and we want to welcome you to this exciting new opportunity for sharing casual conversations around coaching youth lacrosse. I'll be joined by my co-host, Joey Picard, and we both have a long history of coaching and teaching this game that we're so passionate about, and we wanted to make something particular for youth lacrosse coaches, administrators, and families. This podcast is powered by Massachusetts Youth Lacrosse, and we're excited to share this content with you each and every week. Enjoy.
Hi, and welcome to On the Fly, casual conversations for coaching youth lacrosse. Throughout the course of this podcast, we're going to be talking a lot about the importance of having practice plans. We're hoping that most coaches prepare for their spring by having a season plan. This can be written down with great attention to detail, maybe a chronological outline mapping out every week and all that you plan to cover. Or maybe it's a free-flowing idea of an arc that is floating haphazardly in the back of your head, or anything in between. But we should all agree that we come into a season with a sense of what we should focus on in the preseason, at the quarter mark, where we are at the halfway point, etc. But what about a bigger arc? Who's thinking about the progression of a player from the time he or she picks up a stick in kindergarten until they transition from youth player to alumnus of your program? Is that the job of one person, of many? In what ways are the coaches responsible? And what if you don't have one? Are you doomed?
We'll discuss philosophy, vision, best practices, and concepts to establish the portrait of a youth graduate, your development plan. So as always, first, we'll start off with a quick 20-second bio and then an icebreaker question. Coach, why don't you get us started?
Sure. And what's the icebreaker?
Well, icebreaker question is going to be, do you coach your team in a manner that's consistent with your organization's development plan?
Great question. Okay, so I'm Coach Joey Picard. I'm entering my 21st season as a youth lacrosse coach here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I'm a four-time letterman at St. John's Prep. I went to Wake Forest University. I'm currently the Director of Operations for Duxbury Youth Lacrosse, which is a program I'll be talking a little bit about today as we discuss development plans. I'm currently the game scheduler for Mass Youth Lax as well as Town Pride Lacrosse League. And to answer this question, do I coach in a manner that's consistent with my organization's development plan? The answer is I hope so, because I wrote it. So I would be quite a hypocrite if I didn't. And the answer is yes, I do. I'm going to talk a lot about it, and I'm really passionate about this because for me, Martin, this sort of reinvigorated my coaching career. I came into a point where year after year, things started to feel a little run-of-the-mill, low energy. I'm coaching 2 teams 5 days a week. But this project kind of reinvigorated my passion for the game to kind of identify what it is we were trying to accomplish. So that's why I love this topic. That's why I'm so passionate to share what Duxbury Youth Lacrosse has done for a development plan and how other coaches and programs can do something similar. How about you?
Love it. My brief bio, my name is Martin Bowes. I grew up in Quincy, Massachusetts, played college lacrosse at University of Hartford, went on to play 8.5 years in the MLL for the Boston Cannons mostly, and I've now been serving as the lacrosse education director for Massachusetts Youth Lacrosse, going on my 5th year in that role. And so this opportunity to talk about this topic is very near and dear to me because it's a large part of my role with the league is helping coaches and helping organizations create this plan, working with other coaches and administrators like yourself that already have done this work, and to see what works for them and where the gaps are to fill is really, really important for me to kind of keep a pulse on. So I'm excited to learn from you in today's episode, and I thank you for the work you've done in the realm of Duxbury Youth Lacrosse, because I know that there's a lot we can learn, and hopefully in today's episode we can pull some of those gems out. So I'll start with a question directed towards you, Coach. What is a development plan, and why is it important?
Well, in the simplest terms, it's a curriculum. I view coaching as having 3 roles. We're a strategist. That's really important, but that's a distant third to the roles we take on as teacher and role model, teaching life lessons. And like all teachers, we need a curriculum. And that's exactly what this is. So this is really a coaching tool that's meant to be instructive, not prescriptive. Ours provides general benchmarks that bring consistency to our program from coach to coach, level to level. And a development plan literally just kind of maps out what the prototypical graduate of your youth lacrosse player looks like after he or she finishes their time at youth and goes on to high school. But there's many ways to do it. Is it important? I think so. I really do. We'll talk a little bit about to what extent it's important and how coaches can embrace it, contribute to it. But at the end of the day, we all need a plan going into our experience with the kids to kind of help us figure out where are they in their development? What can I do to teach them? What should they be learning? What's age and grade appropriate?
Understood. So maybe this varies, town to town, but my next question would be, who is or should be responsible for making this plan?
That's a great question. I think this is geared towards town leaders more than a coach. So I hope potentially a new coach listening doesn't feel like they have the weight of having to create the entire development plan for the program. The one thing I would say makes for a successful person or team of people, which is the case in my town, is that they have experience at the youth lacrosse level. I think it's amazing to have high level of IQ for lacrosse, experience playing college professionally. But if you don't know what a third grader is like consistently, if you don't know what a fifth grader is like, it would be hard to put this together. So for me, it's anybody who's passionate, who cares, and is really intuitive as to the development of a youth athlete in particular, as compared to, let's say, a high school or a collegiate player.
Sure. So leaning more towards the administrators within a program as opposed to, each individual coach. But maybe those individual coaches are passionate about, having a hand in that. And obviously they're the ones on the field. And so, part of what we'll talk about today is having the flexibility to make changes on the fly, pun intended. And that's obviously a big part of having flexibility and fluidity built into your plan. And then what I'd like to also tag on to this question of, who's responsible, if you consider for your program that maybe you're the person who feels that weight, that like, man, we typically don't have practice plans. And I feel like I'm the one who's trying to create it each week. And it's like this stressor for me, that's something that we can help as an organization, that Mass Youth Lacrosse can help with, and that myself individually within my role am doing my best to make myself available to coaches that feel that stress. And so, it's the fall right now. We're trying to get ahead of this. And so if you're someone that would like to work with us directly, I want you to know that you can reach out to me personally on this topic. Any follow-up comments?
Well, the other thing is, besides who's responsible for making it, it would be irresponsible for the author or authors to not have coach input, to not talk to the coaches who are with these kids, understanding the day-to-day needs of the players, where they are, how they're competing in their league, how the practices are going. So really, this is one of those examples of it takes a village, which is something I say a lot, but this is the truth.
Sure. Great segue into my next question for you, Coach, which is, you have the plan. How do you think about the coach's role within that plan and, having the foresight to, give them direction as well as give them the autonomy to make changes as we go?
Yeah, exactly. And I think the coach's role here is to, first of all, understand it, ask, do we have one? And if not, what is it that you'd like me to do? I think coaches are looking for a couple of things when they agree to take on a team. I think they're looking to be welcomed and trusted by their town, that you're going to be responsible for this kid's lacrosse education. But they also want guidance and support. And so a development plan can really give that. And so it's up to the coach. This is a two-way street. It's up to the coach to read it, understand it, ask questions. And I think a good development plan leaves enough wiggle room where a coach can bring their individual style. I think we can all agree, we're not looking for robots. We're not looking for cookie cutter coaches. Everyone has strengths that they should play to. Everyone has weaknesses that we're working on as individuals. We might have different takes on discipline, culture, communication styles, but a development plan kind of keeps everything consistent. And so a coach's job here is to embrace it. We'll talk a little bit down the road on this podcast about how can a coach help implement and change it. If have ideas, maybe they want to add some wrinkles to it, have some strong opinions to get more involved in that. But at the end of the day, learning it and doing their best to say, hey, I'm going to put my stamp on this.
Got it. So what's cool about this episode is, you've already created a resource And so we'll be providing that resource for people that really want to take a closer look at what you've created for Duxbury Youth Lacrosse. And I'll kind of just segue that comment into asking you, how did you create that Duxbury Youth Lacrosse development plan? And, what are any key things you'd like to highlight as we, talk about this now?
Sure. So this was a really wonderful project. I alluded to the fact that this kind of helped give me a second wind as a coach. But about 4 years ago, we had a new president for our town program who took the reins, approached me. At the time, I was not on the board. I was just kind of the coordinator of our Little Dudes program, which is boys K1 and 2. And in that program, we have 130 boys. It's a vast army of kids who are out on the field and a small army of coaches to go along with it. And I think he saw that I was really well organized and passionate about it. And he said, I would like for you and I, because he had a huge hand in this as well, to put together a panel, and we are going to write our program's development plan. And the first thing I want to address is the fact that we were not ripping up everything and starting from scratch. Much of what we did was to kind of articulate things that we already believed in and we had already been doing. And by the way, Duxbury Youth Lacrosse is entering its 38th season. I've only been involved with it for 8 years. So this has been a program for 30 years prior to me even stepping foot on our fields. So this has the DNA of every man and woman who volunteered their time before me. So this was just our way to kind of come together and say, who are we? What do we care about? What do we want the prototypical graduate of our program to look like? So, and stop me if you have any follow-up questions. Like I said, I'm really passionate about this project.
Sure. I know you could talk about, I guess to make a specific follow-up question on that, it would be, what were some of the discussions like with, let's say, the previous coaches that were involved before you got there? And were there any clashes or debates about what should or shouldn't be included in something like this?
Sure. And we had great, healthy debates, no clashes. This was a really cathartic experience. So the first things first, we put together a panel of about 15 coaches, and some of them were current coaches, some of them were previous coaches. What was really impactful to this whole project was we had our varsity coach, assistant varsity coach, and JV coach who sat in on that. We also had 2 senior captain players as well as some parents. So this was a nice collection of people with a broad range of experiences. And essentially we met a couple of times in the fall, which is the best time to kind of plan. By springtime, we're all kind of totally loaded with responsibilities. So this was a great fall project. And we got together a handful of times and we just talked lacrosse. We just talked about all the things that we were passionate about, all the ways that we coached. We had maybe 3 sessions, and in each session we kind of took on a different topic. And right off the bat, the first thing we wanted to accomplish is we wanted there to be a better synergy between our youth program and our high school program. Because at the time, and I don't know how unusual this is, I feel like a lot of towns have a great relationship with our high school program. And not that we didn't, but there was definitely a gap. There was definitely a communication gap between what we're doing and what they're doing. So just getting those varsity and JV coaches in the room with us was really substantial to this project. And I remember the very first question I asked when we got all 15 of these, great people together was, what kind of players do our varsity coaches want us to deliver to them to be ready to try out? And then once they make the team, be ready for the first practice. And I won't forget it. Coach Chris Sweet, who's our varsity coach, didn't have to think about it. He had the answer ready to go and he wasn't even prompted. And he said, I want kids with sound fundamentals. I want kids who are competitive and confident, and I want kids who are still passionate about the sport, that they're not burnt out by the time they get to me. And that sentiment alone gave us so much to work with that we as the youth coaches said, all right, this is our mission statement. How do we get the fundamentals? How do we keep the passion? How do we make these kids confident and competitive? And another thing he said that I'm going to pass along too is competitiveness is not a dirty word. What we're looking for these kids to do is to be athletes and to go out and compete. It's not about win-loss records. It's not about state titles. It's, are you competitive as often as you can be? Are you in every game regardless of the score? Those are the type of kids we want. So Martin, that kind of kick-started our conversation off the bat.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm trying to think for maybe the coach that doesn't have the 15, people that are interested in this, and maybe they're feeling like they're going to have to create this development plan on their own to some degree. What kind of time commitment did all those meetings entail? Like on hour per week or total of hours that were put into this. And if you were to put yourself in the shoes of someone who feels like, oh man, I don't have that, how can I simplify this process?
Sure. So in this particular project with these 15 coaches, we did 3 sessions, maybe about an hour and a half each, met at the library a couple of times. Most of the work was done by me at the end. What I did is I took these window-sized Post-it notes and a bunch of markers. I plastered them all over the library wall, and I just wrote down every idea that came to me. It was not their job to make sense of it. It was their job to just spew out their hearts about everything they know and love about the sport. It took me a considerable amount of time to kind of, rifle through, come up with a plan, pull from lots of sources. So to do something as extensive as we've done it did take a little bit of time, but I'm a little crazy like that. Most coaches don't need to do that. It doesn't need to be. Our final project is a 19-page document, which, as you said, I'm very, very happy and eager to share with anybody who wants to take a look at it. For most coaches and town directors who says, I don't have the time and I'm not crazy enough to do that, I don't think you need to do anything near that. I just think it's a matter of pulling from sources that you trust, whether it's MYL, whether it's the learning portal, which I know you'll talk about, whether it's YouTube and listening to other people. Picasso was alleged to have said that bad artists copy, but great artists steal. And I am a firm believer that if you see something you like, steal it. This is a great community where we say, hey, you like something, take it. You like my drill, you like my practice plan. If you like my development plan, use it. And that's going to cut down a considerable amount of time for you.
Understood. Yeah, and that's an important reason why we put the effort into creating the learning management software that we now have available for free for all MYL members. You, as we all do, can easily go to YouTube and find a ton of great information from a vast array of different coaching perspectives, and there's so much value in that. However, we do find a lot of coaches' feedback that we talk to, but how do I make this for my group? Or if then I'm learning this, like what next? Where does that fit on the progression? And so for those that are a part of MYL that don't know they have access to our learning portal, and for those outside of MYL who will soon have the ability to sign up for the learning portal, know that there is a resource out there that's specific to youth lacrosse coaches. It's called Learn to Coach Lax, and that is the URL, learn the number 2, learn2coachlax.com. For those that want to check that out, and if you have questions, you can reach directly out to me. And in regards to the resource that you created for Duxbury Youth Lacrosse, how did you guys end up really using it? Did you stick to it? Did it change a lot? Has it been added to or subtracted from as the years have gone on? And as also, I'll say, how can we see it?
Sure. So I'll answer that last part first. We're going to put a copy of it, a PDF, into the show notes, and we're going to come up with a website for this and include it there as a nice resource for you. We did this 4 years ago, and so far it hasn't changed. One of the things that we did with this plan, in addition, it ended up being a little bit more of a coach's handbook. There's policies. We put things in there like our wall ball routine, our 18-minute warm-up, which is consistent across the program, things like that. But the core of this is the skill development. What first and second graders should be doing, what third and fourth graders should be doing, fifth and sixth, seventh and eighth, breaking it down by the grade point. The other component of this was the common thread. So again, we talk about not every coach coming in and having a robotic method of teaching the exact same thing, but at least we're using the same language and we're using the same concepts, and we're really basing that off of what our high school program is doing. So they really took the lead in telling us what kind of language they used for, field positioning, what the defense is saying to each other during the slide packaging, which is, supporting the supporters, things of that nature. So that way, all of our kids, regardless of what year they were born, stayed consistent. All of our graduates, one year after another, are going to have a very similar characteristic to them. Again, sound fundamentals, passion, confidence, and competitiveness. So what we do is we give it to all of our coaches. And again, we say, hey, listen, you don't have to read this line by line, but this is who we are. Please read it. adopt it, ask any questions you have, put your spin on it. But this is essentially what we're handing you to tell you about our core values. We also make this readily available to all our families. So a copy of this is on our website so that the parents know, hey, I'm paying a lot of money for this experience. What is my kid going to get out of it? And we're not promising anybody they're going to make varsity team. We're not promising anybody glory. We're not promising anybody other than we're going to give our best effort at giving you a preparatory lacrosse education. We're going to give your son or daughter the tools they need to go and have success in this sport if they're willing to put the hard work in. And we're going to instill something like hard work ethic as one of our core values. So this is something that we don't hide from. We don't keep it a secret. We'll share it with anyone who'd like to take a look at it. But it really helps kind of tie our local community together, both as a youth program, as a little bit of a surrogate to our high school program as well. And then for the larger community saying, hey, we're all in this together. We believe very strongly in the proverb, a higher tide raises all ships. So the stronger my surrounding towns are and the ones that I compete against every Sunday, the stronger my town's going to be in comparison by, iron sharpening iron. So we're very eager and happy for as many eyeballs on this as possible. This is something we're really proud of.
Love it. Well, I'm really excited for the coaches that take up the initiative and download it and dive into it because, just looking through it, there's just so much value in it. So really encourage any coaches out there listening, any administrators out there listening to download this PDF and take a look at it. And I guess to, just for the coach, I kind of mentioned maybe there's a coach that feels like, they don't have the bandwidth to go out and create this on their own. They can certainly download this and, use it as a template. But what would you say for a coach that really wants a simplified version? How would they go about creating it and how effective might that be?
I think it could be really effective to just write down a couple of goals, right? Depending on your level. Where do I want to see the majority of these kids at the end of the year? Which skills should they be proficient in? Which skills should they be confident but still developing? And what am I slowly starting to expose them to so that they're prepared for the next level? So I think it's as simple as that. You can get really into the weeds and deep into this. And I've seen other towns. I've seen a great town, Chelmsford Youth Lacrosse, put together an amazing PowerPoint presentation that they share with all of their coaches as to what they believe in and what they're teaching. So I've seen, everything from a 19-page document to, like I said, here's a cocktail napkin that has the top 3 goals I have for my program and for, my grade level. I think it's also important for a coach who might be coming into this to not only know their grade level, but I think it's nice to know the one prior to it. Like, what did these kids learn last year? And then take a sneak peek as to what next year is so you can slowly start getting these kids ready. Because at the end of the day, I believe youth lacrosse is all about getting kids ready for that next level, all the way up until 8th grade when we're getting those kids ready and confident to try out for their freshman team.
Love it, Coach. It makes a lot of sense. So in future episodes, what we'll be able to do is have a live audience and, we'll be able to field some questions in real time. We're not there quite yet. So what we did is we went ahead and fielded some questions beforehand, for real life examples of what coaches might be asking about. So I'm going to go ahead and read you a question, Coach,
Nice.
that we got. So first one, our town program has something similar to this.
Awesome.
We've got a handbook for coaches and some sample plans and general concepts, but some of which I disagree with.
Oh.
Do I ignore or raise my concerns?
So I never would suggest anyone ignores anything. And I really believe strongly that, and this is not just exclusive to youth lacrosse, this is for all of life in general. This fosters great dialogue and discourse. So I think this is a great opportunity for a coach to maybe start by asking questions. How did you get there? Why is it this? What can we do to augment this? What are the chances that we can revisit this? I think having an honest conversation is infinitely better than just ignoring it and running your own path, which is just going to cause some friction for you down the road. I think this is also a great opportunity for coaches to find these paths to roll up their sleeves and get more involved. Now, if you're in your first, second, third year of coaching, you have enough on your plate, right? You already are putting together your practice plans, dealing with everything that's the constituency of your 20 kids. that's a lot. But as you get into years 2, 3, 4, you're going to start feeling this is a lot easier, right? You're not necessarily lather, rinse, repeat. Every group of kids that you get is going to be a little different, and they're growing and they're developing. But you're going to find that it's a little easier to plan, and maybe you have a little bandwidth to step up to the plate. And ultimately, I hope every coach considers at some point getting on their town board, having their opinions, discussing them respectfully, of course. But if you don't like your practice plan, go help change it.
We briefly interrupt this episode to remind you all about the New England Youth Lacrosse Convention. This upcoming convention is the 4th annual. We'll be hosting at Gillette Stadium, and we're super excited. The date for that is February 1st, and we'll be welcoming coaches from all around the country with tons of different speakers and vendors joining us. We hope you'll join us too. Please check out the Instagram page for more information and to gather tickets as well. That's NE Youth LaxCon on Instagram. One more time, that's NE Youth LaxCon on Instagram. Hope to see you there. Yeah, and I would add on to that too, Coach. I find in most instances when a coach finds something that they disagree with and they have a legitimate reason for why they would maybe do it a different way, more times than not, whoever created that plan is going to say, that's awesome. I'm glad that you feel a certain way about this, and I support you in your journey. And so, maybe you end up doing exactly what you would have done anyways, but now you've actually had a discourse about it, and there's a connection that's built, and now that administrator knows that you care, right? And so more times than not, you're going to be able to do what you want to do regardless, but by communicating that you would like to do it a different way, I think only good can come from that.
Couldn't agree more. Well said.
All right, so next question we got here, and I love this one. I think this is really common. You mentioned it a little bit earlier. So a lot of kids in my town go to private school. We've got a strong town program, but as a result of the exodus from the public schools, we don't have the strongest high school team. And there's a revolving door of high school coaches, making it hard to have a steady relationship. So what advice is there for creating a plan in conjunction with a high school program that feels like it's changing all too often?
Great question. And it is common. And I know that a lot of kids do go to private school. And not only that, we also have some municipalities, some big towns in cities that actually have multiple high schools. I'm thinking of Newton, Massachusetts, that has Newton North, Newton South. Quincy, where you grew up, has Quincy North, Quincy South. So how does a youth program find that symbiotic relationship with two different programs running two different schemes? Or in this particular case, you have a revolving door of coaches. So in this instance, I think it's a great bonus to have a good relationship with your high school. But more importantly, your obligation and your focus and passion should be for your youth program. So I would advise, and maybe you have a different take on this, but I would focus on your culture, your town program, and giving these kids general concepts that will have them successful no matter where they go. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if the kid goes public or private. It's still your job and duty to give them a great experience and to take those skills and knowledge and let them be successful anywhere. And that's going to be indicative that you have a great program.
Agreed. And I think that there's a very relevant question that comes up from the high school level to the college level. And I think that there's a through line of, similar to what you just said, of being able to go anywhere and find success. I think I've heard youth coaches in the past say, the high school team runs a 1-4-1 offense. Therefore, I'm going to run a 1-4-1 offense. And in theory, that does make sense, like just practically. But you just, if I'm a coach, I just want lacrosse players. I want to be able to decide based on who we're playing that week. Let's say if I'm a high school coach or a college coach and it's a little bit more advanced, I may change up what offense we're running. I may want to have a few different options. And what you'll find too at the higher levels, the best coaches usually run principles-based offenses and defenses. It's not, hey, when you get in this situation, you have to do this. You learn principles of the sport so that you're able to make good decisions in real time. So I would just encourage coaches to understand, you want to know what kind of offense your high school team wants to run. That's not invaluable information, but if you can teach principles, as an example, the value of clearing space to create space, right? The cutter creates the space. That's a principle. If you can teach that principle, well, that applies in every offense, right? So, you're going to, regardless of position, one of my philosophies, regardless of position, there are certain skills every lacrosse player needs to learn. And so you could be a goalie, you could be a long stick midfielder, a close defense, you could be a draw athlete for the girls game, you could be an attacker. Regardless, you need to know how to cut, you need to know how to defend, you need to know how to catch, scoop, cradle, dodge. It doesn't matter what position you play. You have that foundational lacrosse player skill set, and I think that should be sort of one of the end goals is you've got the foundational skills and you've got the fluidity and the pliability to tailor your game based on the coaching style of who's at the helm of your team.
If you wanted to create the simplest development plan in one sentence, I would tell you to go out there and write down, teach them how to be an athlete.
Right. Exactly. So in agreement there. So a last question, Coach, and then we can wrap this thing up. This is a coach who has a pretty new program, less than 5 years old, and as a result, even our older teams struggle with the basics. Mm-hmm. So their question is, should our development plan reflect that? And with time and improvement, would that mean updating our plan? Or is it better to have something that stays consistent for longer?
Great question. And there's so many towns that are exactly here, right? They just started lacrosse 5, 6, 7 years ago. And by the way, each class can fluctuate. You could have a class of tremendous athletes and then just it kind of dips back. And maybe you have some more cerebral players. Maybe the year after that, you have, bruisers who can go out there and just grind through blue collar style. So how do you develop a plan that is for these kind of developing situations? And I think the answer to that is, yeah, I would. I wouldn't try to think 20 years down the road. I'd try to work with what you think is the foreseeable 4 or 5 year plan. And I think it's then a great bonus to say, okay, you know what? We've really hammered the fundamentals, which is what we need to succeed in this sport is the fundamentals. And now that we've done that, 5 years later, we're starting to compete. We're starting to be competitive in every game. We're starting to win some. Now we have the players and the ability to enter into select, and now we're starting to win some over there. Let's regather and then maybe come up with some new goals. But I think it's totally appropriate and very smart to kind of know which kind of players you have, which kind of coaches you have, and to create a plan that's just going to bring the most amount of success and the most amount of confidence to your constituents so that they come back happy every year. You overwhelm them. You set a bar that people can't reach. That's only going to frustrate. That's only going to create setbacks. And so the best thing we can do is to build confidence and attainable goals. So no problem at all if you're a young program to think in that terms. You agree?
I do. It makes a lot of sense. And what I would add on to is I think it can be very enticing as a coach to say, I want to get to the point with my team that we don't have to work on the fundamentals. Our stick skills, hey, that's for you practicing on your own, which in essence, I do agree with that. I think if you've got a team that are bought into doing wall ball on their own daily, it does give you more options at practice. However, if you go and watch a professional lacrosse team practice, guess what they're doing the first 15, 20, 30 minutes? Stick work. And it just looks a little different because maybe the spacing changes and maybe they can run through a couple different scenarios, but it's really just stick work and footwork. They're going from this line to that line and they're running full speed and the ball's zipping out of their stick a little faster than maybe at the college level or the high school level and certainly the youth level, but it's still just stick work to start practice. And so, I would just, encourage coaches to stay patient on that front and to know that you can't really get away from it. It's just that the options that you have and the type of stick work drills you can do at the beginning of practice expand as your team's skill level rises. It's not that you stop it altogether.
Amazing. Couldn't agree more.
So I, as a kind of closing remark, and then I'll let you kind of tie a bow on it, I would just like to remind coaches that for those that really would like a hand in creating a development plan, encourage you to download the resource that'll be attached to this episode, but also to reach out to myself personally, and we'd be more than happy to work with you and create something that's specific to you. There's no cookie cutter right way to do this, and I think that you've mentioned multiple times in this episode, it can be fluid. It can change from year to year based on what you have in front of you, especially, if I'm a new program that's just getting started with this, and I feel like I got, so much developing to do even for my older age groups, that's okay. We can reflect that in the plan, and we're here as a resource for you. So whether you're a part of Mass Youth Lacrosse or not, we're going to be here for you.
And that's ultimately what this is about, is support. The development plan is it's a coaching tool, and there's no better organization in the world, in my opinion, than Mass Youth Lax, who's like to be there for everybody as your support as needed. So please take advantage. This has been a real pleasure. I love this topic. I could have talked for 2 hours on this. I hope we kept it short enough for the clips, Martin. As always, we want to thank the great supporters of us, which includes our Mass Youth Lax producers, Aaron Brogan, Kevin Barney, and all the folks on the board of directors who are passionate behind us. Thanks for you to come and listen and partake in these conversations. We look forward to having some more live discussions where we can hear more from you all. And me personally, I don't have all the answers. I put a lot of time into that 19-page document with my fellow coaches, but I'd love to see more. I'd love to see yours. I'd love to steal from you. So please not only look at mine, but I'd love to have you share yours with the rest of us as well.
Appreciate your time and effort, Coach Joey, and thank you to all the listeners out there. We'll see you soon.